Hey folks, my name is Kason, although you may know me as Kalo, and today I'm going to be teaching you about Crucible's game mode, Heart of the Hives. This is the second video in a 3-part series, with today's focus being on teamfighting and opportunity windows. If you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend starting with the first video on farming and grouping. Otherwise, let's just jump into it. Teamfighting obviously isn't a mechanic exclusive to Crucible. We've seen it across hero shooters, MOBAs, FPSs, etc. Pretty much any type of team-based PvP game, but the ways in which you should approach teamfights in this game does differ depending on the situation. Part of that is dependent on the character you're playing and your team's composition as a whole, something I'll talk about more in part 3 of this series, but there are definitely things you could be doing now to improve how consistently you contribute to the teamfights you're already getting into. I think the best way to approach this lesson is with an example, so we're going to use a game that I played the other day. For context, this is a pretty sweaty lobby filled with alpha testers, even some developers. Everybody knows what they're doing, and as such, it's a pretty close game. We lost the first heart, but just captured the second one, and are now back in the territory battle. As a quick refresher, this is basically the tug of war that happens between major objectives. This plays heavily into the information game that I talked about in the last episode. You should be thinking about where your opponents are most likely to respawn. Typically, these areas are going to be not too close to where the fight just happened, and will typically include any secondary objectives or harvesters that they can capture. In this case, that likely means the lower left quadrant by Spring's Harvester. But because there's so much time before the next hive comes up, I don't see any need to push them aggressively. I'd much rather our team push to level 5 and restock on medkits before grouping back up to pressure the opponents in the map. As expected, they spawn near Springs, and so after a little bit of canister dancing, we had to group up mid. At this point, the hive is up pretty soon, so our priority is in defending the harvesters that we already own, not so much invading the territory that our opponents have. Yeah, if we can just hold mid and the right side of the map, we're good to go. With about a minute left before the hive spawns, we head over to spaceport to get positioning. See, teamfighting in this game isn't just about which targets to prioritize or being coordinated or even just landing your shots. If your opponents have to spend more time catching up with the map control, then your team gets priority on the best positioning for the hive, and also free information about where the other team is going to be approaching from. And if they choose to simply give up map control to get there early, it puts them in a tough spot that I've talked about before, where they're basically on a clock. The reason for this is, if you have the majority of the map, the longer this hive fight goes on, the more they're losing out in experience gains. This essentially forces them to be aggressive to end the fight early, but if your team is also prepared to play defensively, the amount of pressure that you put on the opponents to make something happen is immense. And that's kind of the key word in all this, is pressure. There are a lot of decisions to be made in a Heart of the Hives game, and the harder you make it for your opponents to make those decisions, the more likely they are to screw something up. In that same vein, they don't necessarily need to make blatant mistakes, but at the very least, this added pressure gives your team more opportunity windows to capitalize. The hive is a few seconds from spawning, but we see that the opponents are still making their way into spaceport. They haven't found their footing yet, and so I make the call for us to burn the hive. This goes back to pressure. If we start to capture the heart, they're forced to push in to try to stop us. That, with the added benefit of our Mendoza and Earl being able to poke them as they come in, means we should be putting them in a pretty uncomfortable position. We get the hive down, and the first one to openly challenge us is the Cezanne. Unfortunately, we don't capitalize on this. If our Drakal had stunned here instead of trying to go for the hook, she likely would have been dead. Regardless, the point is that the opportunity did present itself, and the fight continues. Some back and forth happens for a while, but nobody really budges. This is where creating opportunities comes into play. In the same way that pressuring our opponents gives us more information, it can also give us more opportunities. I begin to capture the heart, and, trusting my teammates, wait patiently for the opponents to start to burn all of their abilities. Drakal leaps in and uses his stun, but is blocked by our Earl's blowback, so their Earl is forced to quickly shift in and use his blowback as well. It doesn't look like it yet, but it's at this point that the fight is over. The other team has spent all of their frontline resources, making them sitting ducks for our damage. They try to burst us down with what they have left, but it's too late. Our Drakal is already on their backline, and after their Earl dies with ours still healthy, we begin to run over the rest of their team. Now let's watch that entire team fight back full speed. Yeah, 2, 3 there. We want to burn.
Good lucky.
Maybe you poke, Wiki. Maybe you poke.
Oh,
we burn.
Okay, you burn? Okay.
Yeah. You guys just play for the fight.
Back up, yeah, no vision on them.
I'm getting it. You want me to flank or not? I gotta get flank.
Yeah, if you
Sure.
can do it, Armando.
Right here?
Careful, we're out of LOS,
All on you, back up.
Yeah, back
Shielding
up.
you. Can we just pressure
Look
it?
at Jack, look at Jack.
Yeah, yep.
Trying to get my kid off real quick.
Mendo on high, Mendo on
Good
high.
Mike.
This is not up close here. Yo, this is on his free.
They're on me, on me.
Taking a drag. Mendo half.
Yeah, Mendo. Jack on you. Back on Jack.
Prop, shut the fuck up.
Can we help him here? No, seriously, shut up.
I'm good. I need to get right here.
Yes, please. All on platform here.
Mando's gonna have to back up and heal.
Mendo has to get. Fourth cap,
Care,
fourth
right
cap.
side, care, right side. I don't like being the one to cap. Pressuring it.
They're in, they're in.
Watching you guys.
Getting off.
Stunning.
Drag.
Come on, Jack.
Come on.
Okay, this is on them. Fight Jack. Can't see
Yeah,
him.
watching
I'm
that
on
right
Earl.
side. We're good. Burn.
Look at Earl, look at Earl, look at Earl.
Yeah, I'm on him with you.
Jack
dies,
on me,
he dies.
Two on me. I'm kiting.
Come out.
Mendo.
No shield for a bit. You're good. No hook.
Got Mendo hooked over here.
Mendo.
Good kill.
Okay, nice.
good kill.
Drag now.
Jack.
Dead back.
I got you. Just fight it.
Spawn springs missed.
Will do.
Good fight. The next video and last part of this initial series is one I made during testing earlier this year. It's much longer and goes into the theoretical. It's pretty podcasty, honestly. I'm going to be cutting it up to keep just the most relevant bits, but its focus is going to be on individual characters and their roles in these kinds of compositions. If you have any questions about the stuff I went over today, or about the game in general, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I've also opened up my Discord with a Crucible channel where I'll be more readily available to answer any questions throughout the day. The link for that will be in the description down below. If you liked the video or learned something, give it a thumbs up. If you want more Crucible content like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Until next time, stay safe, stay beautiful, and I'll see you later. Peace.